Well, I think that video is what's called a manifesto. Wasn't that quite extraordinary? Evening, everyone. I'm Charlie Jeffrey, the Vice-Chancellor of the University, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you all onto campus this evening to celebrate the launch of the School of Arts and Creative Technologies. And can I just say at the outset how extraordinary that performance was we just heard outside in the atrium. I don't know if any of the performers are in here, but even if they're not, could we just show our appreciation? Now, my script here says I should now draw your attention to the slide which says how we escape from here in the event of fire, but it's not there. So I should just say we're not expecting a fire alarm, and if you hear one, we will have event stewards showing you what to do and probably saying get out of that door there, and the ones that here. But anyway. Let me say a few words about the brilliant new initiative we're celebrating tonight, the School of Arts and Creative Technologies. That's one of three new schools we're proud to have opened this academic year, bringing together groundbreaking combinations of disciplines and subjects. The other two are, firstly, the School for Business and Society, for Business and Society, which combines the university's strengths in responsible business management, social policy, social work and public management to create an environment that will help develop the ethical leaders of tomorrow. The second is the School of Physics, Engineering and Technology, which brings together colleagues working in fields as diverse as the origins of the universe in theoretical physics, through to tech startups harnessing the technologies of the future through novel approaches and curriculums in engineering. Now, those new combinations, as this one, are part of the University of York's vision to be a university for public good. And they will, through exciting research and teaching opportunities, create new ways of generating social benefit from our work. And that's exactly as the founders of this university expected of us in the early 1960s. We're 60 years old this year. And the university's work, in the words of those founders, was to contribute to the amelioration of human life and conditions, and that we should have an interest in social betterment, and we should honour that interest in the new university. Now, I think the School of Arts and Creative Technologies exemplifies that legacy. It combines and amplifies the university's strengths in music, theatre, film, television, interactive and emerging media. The key aims of the school are to respond to and contribute to global innovations and practice in the arts and creative sector and industries by harnessing the combined research and teaching innovations across two departments which have always been among the most pioneering in the university. Firstly, music, and then secondly, TFTI, theatre, film, television and interactive media. A few moments on the pioneering spirit of those departments. Music was founded in 1964 with a mission to do things differently. Unlike existing music departments at the time, York integrated practical music making, composition and musicological studies. And it also specialised in music technology, even at that early stage. Since then, York has also become known for empirical research on music education and music psychology. Music's graduates are spread far and wide in the arts and creative industries, and current staff and students continue a distinguished creative and performing tradition that's just integral to this university. And then TFTI has similarly always sought to keep ahead of the latest trends in media industries and research. It's a more recent addition to the university. It was established in 2007, then as the Department of Theatre, Film and Television. We added interactive media later. The founding aims were to break down barriers between theory and practice, and crucially between the arts and the sciences. TFTI has continuously evolved, expanding into interactive media, including AR and VR, and engaging increasingly and intensively with the businesses of the creative industries. Remains at the forefront of performance and screen media teaching and research by ensuring its activities are informed, aligned, and directly relevant to the creative industries. Now, that combined might of experimentation, discovery, performance, and innovation will fuel our new School of Arts and Creative Technologies to continue that shared tradition of bold pioneering, and in particular responding to the growing potential of the creative industries nationally and internationally, and helping to shape and influence the sustainability and strength of the UK arts and creative sectors into the future. This school makes us uniquely placed to inspire the artists, practitioners, and creative industry leaders of tomorrow. So not only are we contributing to the growth of the UK arts and creative industries, and remember, this is one field in which the UK is unambiguously world leading. We're not only doing that, we're also preparing our graduates to work in a fast-paced, technologically enabled, creative environment through the teaching and research that we're going to do in this wonderful, multidisciplinary, outward-facing academic environment steeped in practice and collaboration. Now, I think in that performance outside, just before we entered the lecture, we saw how that unique creativity can come together in the performance which showcased the talent that we have within the school. It was wonderful to listen to, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the evening just as much as I saw people enjoying that. Now, I looked around the audience, and most people, as that immersive experience unfolded, were just smiling, so wow. Except for staff in the school, especially music staff, who were looking nervous. Is this going to work? Is it going to work? Well, I can assure you that it did. It was absolutely brilliant. So thanks to all concerned. Thanks also in advance to the inspiring and brilliant panel of speakers we have who will sit in those chairs in a few moments. The generosity of your time and your enthusiasm to be part of this milestone event for the university is really and truly appreciated. I'm going to hand over in just a moment to Sam Jackson, recently appointed as controller of Radio 3, but before that a leader in the music industry with senior leadership roles, including running Classic FM, most recently serving as Executive Vice President of Global Classics and Jazz for Universal Music Group. And most importantly, Sam is an alumnus of the University of York's Department of Music. Sam will introduce the other panellists, but I'm sure will also offer his own thoughts on the opportunities and challenges facing the arts and creative industry sectors, but also the ones that this school will help to open up. So Sam, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Can everyone hear me okay? We are on. Wonderful. Good evening. It's a real privilege to be here and to be asked to host this event this evening with this brilliant panel of people who I will introduce very shortly. I just want to say briefly at the start how important this place was to me some 20 years ago. York gave me so much confidence. It was the most extraordinary place to spend 3 years, the most incredibly creative, 3 years of my life, and it set me up for so much. And it's, as I say, a great privilege to be back here today, to bump into lecturers that were there then and are still here now, to bump into other people, or one other person at least, from the class of 2004, who is herself now lecturing in the music department at this university. So thank you very much for having me, and I know we're going to have a really stimulating discussion. It will be exactly that as well. It will be a discussion, plenty of time for questions at the end. So please do be thinking about what yours might be as we go through the evening. But I do just want to introduce our brilliant panel first of all. The woman to my left on one level needs no introduction. Many of you will know Dr. Alison Balsom, who was awarded an honorary doctorate by this university back in 2021. Alison, one of the most famous trumpet players in the world, having performed with many of the world's greatest orchestras and conductors, and it's great to have you with us here tonight, Alison. Damian Murphy is Professor in Sound and Music Computing in the Audio Lab here at York, whose work has been presented internationally and has included multiple collaborations with writers, photographers and digital artists. And then last but by no means least, Tess Ellison is the executive producer at Nottingham Playhouse. Tess also studied here at York, doing an MA in theatre, and over the course of her career to date has produced shows ranging from West Side Story to White Christmas and Fiddler on the Roof to The Colour Purple. So can I invite you to show your appreciation for our panel here tonight. Now we're going to kick off with each panellist giving their thoughts in some detail, a few minutes to share their thoughts on the arts. It's a little like an election programme where each of the candidates has to pitch for your vote, but hopefully less intense than that. So we're going to begin with you, Alison, and really, what we've invited the panellists to think about tonight is to share really their reflections on the changing nature of the arts and the creative industries, because these people have all seen that up close. And so, Alison, it would be great to kick off with you. Please do share your thoughts.
Thank you, Sam. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So it's quite a big topic, as I'm sure we'll all agree. So I've decided I'll say a couple of words about me and arts in society, and also all kinds of different minds. That's what kind of first came to me when I thought of pulling something together for a few minutes. My own experience has been this. I had a comprehensive school education in the 80s and 90s, and alongside that I had the opportunity to study at the Junior Guildhall School of Music and Drama, the Saturday school at the Guildhall, and I also played in the National Youth Orchestra. At this time, the benefits in the UK for music included free school music lessons, the sense that it was taken for granted that music and the arts were absolutely core to an all-round basic and good education in this country, bursaries for further study from the local council for those who needed them, me included, and a variety of community ensembles, the list goes on. In my comprehensive school, I did pretty well. I was near the top of the classes, but the most profound difference between me and my peers was that I was a musician, not a hot-housed child prodigy, but just a normal girl who had a big passion for playing the trumpet. Most importantly, this creative tool, if you like, led me to having an immense gateway of connections with other people and cultures, empathy with other points of view, or other ways of doing things. It taught me how to problem solve, find courage, organize my time, express myself in non-verbal ways, and think creatively due to the vast variety of different environments that I found myself in, slightly outside of my comfort zone. Not utterly terrifying, not most of the time anyway, but just enough to switch on the synapses, the antennae a bit more. Today, I think it's very worrying and short-termist for our society that the arts in some areas are being devalued in education, with both funding cuts and sidelining in the core curriculum. My feeling and my experience is that we are a tiny country on the global stage, and that the soft power that we have as a nation, more importantly now than ever after Brexit, is that we still have soft power, but it's still strong. We still punch way above our weight culturally. And if this is to continue, we have to acknowledge and learn how to harness our creative talent in new and innovative ways. A flexible, collaborative, open-minded approach is the ultimate transferable skill. Now I want to talk a little bit about something which seems slightly off-piste here, but it's something that's quite close to my heart. I think it's nothing less than a tragedy for those who can't afford access to music education and the creative arts in education. But I've also learnt more than I ever thought I would in recent years about neurodiversity. For example, if the so-called core subjects of maths and English and the like are a struggle for you, or sitting quietly and still in a conformist classroom, also something that might be difficult, you're almost certainly going to find that the rest of your life is more challenging than for the majority of your peers. However, we do now know that this narrow and outdated approach to education might work for the masses to get a standard qualification, but it does not ensure the success of anyone's more conventional career in the face of the progress of artificial intelligence. And our understanding of neurodiversity and neuroscience is progressing at a real pace now. Many of our most original thinkers, the most impactful creators, and the most talented individuals have what is now recognized as a neurodivergence and could well prove to be our MVPs in this field, most valuable player, that is. From an economic perspective, which is also not to be sniffed at, I'm sure that we'll talk about that more today, in just a few short years, those with the ability to think creatively and originally may be the ones who have the most influence in the workplace. The arts and the creative technologies could be the last bastion, if you like, of uniquely humanness in the face of the AI advancement. There have been immense changes in the last decade in the arts, and many of them certainly for the good. And there have been, and will continue to be, immense changes in technology, from the creative technologies to neuroscience, enabling us to benefit from brilliantly creative minds, leaving artificial intelligence in the dust. Your School of Arts and Creative Technologies can and will be amongst the vanguard of this creative revolution. That's what I had to say.
Wow, there's so much that we could talk about there. Thank you, Ali. There's so much we could unpack, and we will do, I'm sure. But let's build on that further and hear your thoughts, Damian. I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Sam. And I should probably say, by way of connection, and from what Charlie said in his introduction as well, I wouldn't literally be here without the University of York and its forward-thinking idea about what creativity was way back in the 90s, through that music technology program that Charlie mentioned, because I did that. It was unheard of as an opportunity. I was a musician at school. I was a mathematician in terms of my academic background, and suddenly York offered this thing that was, what is this? Who are these people that are emerging out of the music department and the engineering department at the time? And so it set me up on a career that I've been hugely grateful for and hugely privileged to have, and it's because of the University of York, and it's doing it again now in this new school. I'm a professor of sound and music computing. I'm in one of the other new schools in physics, engineering, and technology, but I'm also the director of the XR Stories project, and the XR Stories project is a joint project that's across the whole of the university, particularly driven from TFTI and music and physics and engineering, and it's focused on supporting the creative industries in Yorkshire and Humber through the challenges and the opportunities of future storytelling. How is immersive and interactive technology going to change how people make stories? And this is a part of a significant investment from the Arts Humanities Research Council to support clusters of activity around the whole of the UK. So there's 9 of these projects, all focused on different parts of the creative industries. Actually, there's a lot of overlap, but different geographies of the UK as well. And we're focusing on Yorkshire and Humber. And so that's been a hugely dramatic and roller coaster of a journey over the last 5 years. And we're starting to bring together what we've learned from that now across these 9 projects. And it's a very, very timely thing, because last week the government announced via DCMS the creative industries sector vision for the whole of the UK, and it's planned for the next 10 years. And that's been informed by the Creative Clusters programme and lots of other work that's happened as well. And what we've done here in York has gone into that too. And one of those targets for the creative industry sector vision over the next 10 years is 1 million new jobs. And so that is a particular challenge for the UK to rise to, and for our university to rise rise to, because it's well acknowledged across the whole of the sector that one of the significant challenges we face is skills, and it's skills across the whole pipeline from schools, and of course we all know what's happening in schools in terms of how creative aspects are being hollowed out of the curriculum in some schools, and all the way through then. And the creative industries, as we know, and as already been said, are absolutely world leading in the UK, but industry needs those people from, teed up at the very youngest age and brought through all the way through as graduates to the university. And of course, that's a challenge that I think our new school here can rise to. And there's also an opportunity. So I have to plug what was also announced last week as part of the creative industry sector vision, is some of that investment to support an infrastructure for creative industries in the future, which is something called CoStar, which is a network of 4 leading labs that are going to be there to channel talent, ideas, business, collaboration through for the next generation of stories, technologies and live performances. And one of those will be led by the University of York, working in partners across our region, and also with one of our leading industry partners in the region called Production Park, just outside of Wakefield. So the government are investing in this, and the University of York is a key part of it. But there are lots of challenges. As has already been mentioned, AI is going to change all of our lives in many ways. It's already changing our lives. But we shouldn't, there's a lot of, so yesterday we had a colleague come from actually Nottingham Trent University come to speak to us, and he's from a design background, and he was saying we shouldn't be fearful of AI, we should think of it as a creative material that we can use to influence our practice in terms of what we do. And also there's a very interesting narrative in the media at the moment about AI being a threat, but that's been driven by big tech, big technology, big companies who are saying be distracted by that while we extract value from everything that you're doing, from all the algorithms that are driving our lives. You worry about it and we'll just get on with it. But we need to think and change that discourse about AI, and it needs to become part of our practice. We need to embed it in the skills that we're providing our next generation of creatives. And so let's come then to we'll maybe return to some of these points, I'm sure. The value of the arts and how we communicate this. That's really, really important. And again, we've talked about, mentioned, and we'll talk again about what's happening in schools and curriculum. And it's almost a case that the government and the world understands what we do in the UK and how world leading we are at what we do across our arts, but are not prepared to invest in it. And we've got to invest in that next generation coming through if we're going to maintain that lead. It shouldn't be nice, and it shouldn't be for some people. It should be essential to our day-to-day lives. And Sir Peter Bazalgette, who's chair of the Creative Industries Council and led some of the work on the creative industry sector vision, said a second industrial revolution is coming, and it's powered yet again by STEAM, but in this case it's science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. And I think that's a very, very important message that we need to remember. And I think my final point for now is economic value. And is economic value important? And sometimes when we talk about the arts, we worry about sort of having to value it in terms of the money it makes. And of course it does make money, and it makes more money. It's a larger industry in the UK than aeronautical, it's larger than automotive, and yet yesterday I was learning something about how Tata are negotiating with government for significant, many hundreds of millions of pound investment to keep the UK car industry going. Why do we have to sort of worry to chip away at the bits for the creative sector? It can't be guaranteed that we're just going to be world leading all the time. We need the same level of investment. And I'm going to finish my little bit by saying, when we started XR Stories 5 years ago, we got Brian Ellison to come and talk to us, who's another alumnus of the University of York, very famous for Skins and many other great writing that he's done. And he gave a very important message to us when we were thinking about technology and innovation and creativity. He said, writers need shoes. Therefore, we need to make sure that we are providing value to the economy so that we're providing good jobs and good opportunities for school children today, that their parents understand there are brilliant career opportunities in the creative industries, so that's what they're thinking about from the very youngest age, and that's what they're emerging from and into when they do our brilliant degrees here at the University of York. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Damian, very much. It's interesting, isn't it, how already there are some common themes emerging. You know, the importance of education, the talent pipeline coming through, and we will pick up on that, I'm sure. But Tess, to you now, with the perspective of somebody who's in theatre, who is working, producing in Nottingham, tell us what you've reflected upon as you've thought about this big question.
Thank you. I think that some of the themes are exactly the same, actually, so I've got my little list here. So I think that, just to introduce who I am, so I came to York in 2011 to 12, and I did the Masters in Writing, Directing and Performance, and I had a great time here. It was very short, though, you know, and in that time I kind of learned, I really wanted to be a director at that time, but actually found, in a way, I didn't think I was good enough. And so I actually found a sort of niche that was separate to that. It was like, what can I do that actually contributes to this industry? And I found that organising things was probably my niche. So I've ended up being a producer. And I just say to anyone who thinks that there's something, just wait and see, because you might find that you're actually something else. And so I've worked for about 10 years now in regional theatres in the UK. So I've started my career at Theatre by the Lake in Keswick, which, if anyone knows it, the shores of Derwentwater, you know, it's lapping against the doors, basically. When I was there, I kind of shimmied through various different things, and I've had quite a kind of conventional, I guess, route through different titles of producing. So I've been an assistant producer, an associate producer, a senior producer, and now I'm an executive producer. After Keswick, I went to Curve in Leicester, and I mainly worked on musicals that Sam mentioned there. Some really, really huge scale productions that just, I think, goes to show what the regional sector can actually create. They can absolutely compete with anything that is on a national level or in London. And then from Leicester, I've kind of shimmied up the East Midlands corridor to Nottingham, where I'm the executive producer. And the focus really at Nottingham is quite different to Curve, because at Nottingham we do a lot of new writing. So we commission quite a lot of plays. It's been established for a long time, and it's always been the case that Nottingham did quite a lot of new writing. So we work with, you know, known writers, unknown writers, creating new work, basically, and also doing revivals and a very, very well-loved pantomime as well. So I've kind of done a bit of a gamut of lots of different things. My reflections could sort of focus on what are the challenges that we're facing in the theatre industry at the moment, and what are the opportunities that come out of that for us. So the first one really is, as other people have mentioned, the challenging financial situation. It's obvious to say that Arts Council subsidy may have stayed at standstill for theatre organisations and other organisations, but what that really means is a real terms cut in funding from government, and it's quite tricky to work out how on earth you can actually make theatre stack up, to be perfectly honest. There's pressure coming from lots of different places, which is absolutely valid, about what people are paid. People feeling suddenly that they're not doing a favour. Why isn't the theatre paying them, a fee that they can actually afford to live on? Why is the theatre not paying them a fee that they can afford to live away from home on? And in a way, these things, overnight you can't change them, but people are trying to make things more equitable and to get funding from different sources. That's just a kind of micro example of the kind of pressures that it is. But overall, budgets are squeezed. In regional theatres, a lot of places have had to start doing fewer productions a year. They've started, though, and this is where the opportunity comes, to collaborate more. So rather than just sitting in a kind of vacuum and saying, okay, well, we do this and no one else is involved, they've actually had to look to partners in the sector, other theatres. Very common now is commercial co-productions between regional theatres and commercial partners. I did quite a lot of this at Curve. We're doing some more of it at Nottingham, where actually the opportunity comes from effectively a company that's run by a producer, you'll probably heard of some of them, coming to a building and saying, can we use your space to open this really exciting show? Why don't we co-produce it? And actually it shares the financial burden across parties and makes the regional theatres able to present more exciting, diverse work. So it's that collaboration that I think is an opportunity. Another real challenge for everyone is the climate crisis. And theatre is responding really proactively to the climate crisis now, mainly through an initiative called the Green Book, which I'm sure lots of you have heard of, which is about how we can make physically productions more sustainable. So thinking about the materials that we're using to build sets, reusing things. It's not rocket science, but it's not really something theatre has thought about. And at Nottingham, we're actually working with NTU, Nottingham Trent University, so bringing academia into the problem of how we do this, and actually collaborating with them and getting some of the expertise of the environmentalists that are there. So that's a cool opportunity and really important and good. People have already touched on the skills drain in theatre, and after the pandemic, this was really pronounced. I think quite a lot of people kind of woke up one day and didn't have a job, fundamentally, and thought, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. And it's how we bring through people who have technical skills, who have skills in stage management, in lighting and sound and wigs and makeup and costume and all of these things that you literally can't do the show. You know, you're scrabbling around trying to find that one person out of 5 somehow that can do the wigs for your show. It's really quite extraordinary because we think there's no jobs in theatre, but actually if you have these technical skills, you are like gold dust, you know? So it's like, how can we bring forward apprenticeships? How can we work with foundations to create those opportunities that mean that we have this talent pool coming through? And then it's how can we have sustainable careers in theatre? I've been really lucky because I've always worked in buildings, but if you're a freelancer, it's a real challenge to make it add up, even if you're really in demand. So how can we do that? The fourth one is kind of about diversity and inclusion. I think that this has really, really come to the fore in recent times. Neurodiversity is a key one. Disability, you know, working with people from the global ethnic majority as well. This has really, really come through recently, and I think we're not prepared to accept anymore that we're just going to watch stories created by people that don't really know what they're talking about when they create those stories, which is exciting. And then the final one I was going to say is about participation. And I actually added it to my list just as we were sitting there because I realised that theatres and the theatre industry is really kind of trying to fill the gap in some ways in arts provision. And programmes that we do at the Playhouse, I think there's like 57 programmes that we run, by which I mean things like youth theatres, writing groups, music groups, you know, the opportunities that children want, theatres are trying to fulfil. And so that is really exciting. How can we make those things fit more to our needs? How can we make sure that we have technical youth theatres and that we have, you know, places where children can learn about the different careers so that they don't just see one thing as the only thing they can do? Because we need to collaborate. That's my final point, really. We need to collaborate. And we need everyone, because without each member of that team, you can't put on a musical like West Side Story or The Colour Purple without specialists in those areas across the board. So it's a really, really broad opportunity to be receiving into. And that's my thing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And again, there's so much that we could pick up on there. And I want to open up now a conversation between the 4 of us on a number of the themes that have come out from what you've all said, but also to link it back to this new school and to say, OK, well, given your incredible combined knowledge of the sector and the world that students from this school will be stepping into, what are the challenges and the opportunities that they will face? And I was looking earlier at some of the stated aims and objectives of this School of Arts and Creative Technologies, and one of them is, and it was mentioned I think earlier, to respond to and contribute to global innovations and practice in the arts and creative industries. And so just briefly, if you could, I'd be very interested to hear from each of you of a concrete and specific innovation that you have encountered in your practice, that you know of, for students who are here and for others, you know, in the room who are just interested in this. What are those changes? What are those developments that a school like this needs to be equipping their students for? I mean, Tess, do you want to kick us off briefly on this?
Well, I was thinking about this. Actually, I think sometimes out of adversity come really good ideas. So in the pandemic, as you may remember, Leicester and Oadby and Wigston were really famous for a while because we were in tier 4 or whatever when everybody else wasn't. So Leicester was one of the theatres in the UK that couldn't open their doors at all during the pandemic, whereas quite a lot of theatres, they started a Christmas pantomime and then had to close it the next day. So in a way, we were lucky in a sort of way in our theatre. But what we actually did during that time is we revived a couple of musicals that we'd done, but we did it through digital means. So we actually did behind closed doors version of Sunset Boulevard, for example, by Angela Webber, which obviously is a great musical, set on sound stages, set in a film studio. We did it in an empty theatre. We got all of the cast back, who were some fantastic performers. The musicians were in the empty theatre, and we actually filmed it as if sort of like, you know, certain elements for it were in one shot. So like the famous song Sunset Boulevard was a camera following Danny Mac as he walked around the theatre, which was really thrilling and cool. And it actually made this hybrid event that was kind of greater than the sum of its parts, through adversity and through collaboration between like actually different departments and disciplines, bringing together creatives and musicians and filmmakers and, you know, technicians, and it actually kind of made something that there was then disseminated globally online. And that's an example of something we would have never done had we not been forced. And actually, why don't we do more things like that? Because it brings together so many disciplines and makes it really quite exciting. And
so, Damian, as somebody who is an academic here at York, to what extent do you think this school offers an opportunity to train students in that world? How much is that already happening anyway? Because I remember from my time here, you know, York has always been an innovative, progressive, interesting place to study the arts. What's your reflection on this?
I'm going to follow up on Tess's example, actually. I think it's a really good one, and reflect back about the pandemic lockdown times and how performing arts organisations had to really think hard about how you reached out to audiences and the platforms that were available to do that. And I think there were some really innovative and interesting things done at that time, and we've in some ways maybe forgot that a little bit because we've got to get people coming back through the doors again and paying for tickets and keeping the organisations going. But we shouldn't forget about that. And one really good example from this school and from computer science is a project called Weaver, and it was one of 4 flagship national projects focusing on various aspects of arts and live performance, and it's the only one that could keep going, I think, in the way that it originally attended over the pandemic, because it was about digital audiences and about how we use data from audiences in esports, a whole new area of entertainment. Well, it is for those of us of our age, I guess. And what that means and how we can drive data from those performances to tell stories that mean something to the audience. And so there's something there about data-driven storytelling and the digital platforms that are afforded by that, and how we can use that to engage audiences in new ways. And I think, again, our school, our university are leading in that work at the moment, and it's a hugely exciting opportunity. We need to think back again about the hybridization of traditional performance and future performances and the role that data and digital platforms have in that, I think.
Really interesting. Thanks, Damian. I mean, Alison, you are a practicing musician, and you've seen a huge amount of change in terms of your performing career, I'm sure, the recorded music industry. I mean, there's so many different facets, different angles you could take. What would be your reflection on this?
I would say that in classical music, my experience is that we are miles behind the rest of the sector, the rest of the music sector. You see what happens at a non-classical live gig, and it's extraordinary. And classical music is, I mean, I think the given here, and probably we're all preaching to the converted, is that no matter how much money is taken away or how much it's sidelined, there's a human need for this kind of nourishment of the arts. We know that. We know that we're just always somehow going to be driven towards it, want it, need it, make life worth living with it. So it's always going to be, even after the pandemic, we can see that everyone wants to be at a festival. They might be nervous about going to the concert on a Tuesday night, but they definitely want to hear, see the live events. It's really the age of live music, of festival performances, of memorable experiences of music and the arts when people can come together. Classical music is behind, but we're really at the infancy of using technology to contextualize classical music a bit more. So it's not like a crossover experience, which is kind of a dirty word in core classical music, but it's the crossover in the best way, that perhaps you're putting on a piece of Palestrina or, I don't know, Stravinsky or anything, but you don't dumb it down or water it down or mix it up with too many other things, but you just sort of focus people's attention with perhaps really clever lighting, or with a few words said either end, with some poetry or just some contextualization, and using the best of what's incredibly innovative in technology, anything you can, just to kind of help people in this kind of very fractured, with our sort of very short attention spans that we tend to have these days, help us kind of have a longer focus and be more nourished by something. And I think that that's something that we can, this is the perfect institution to follow those paths. And if you're in any way involved in the classical music industry, we're completely at the beginning of this journey. We're way behind, so there's everything to play for.
And so you think there are opportunities in that? You don't think that people will be stepping out into a world where the industry is saying, no, we're not ready for this?
No, because it's such a competitive industry and such a difficult industry to get into. As a performer, or in many ways, it's quite a niche industry, but I can guarantee that when we're all long gone, classical music will still be fighting fit. And so it's so difficult to kind of maintain and reach those levels of just purely playing that music, that everyone gets, if you can get to that level, it's sort of like, okay, we're going to have to stop there. We can't push this any further. But I think it's that hunger to keep pushing and pushing. And people love classical music. People are scared of classical music because they don't know how to access it. But people love it and they're moved by it. And so if you're in any way involved in the arts, it's a sort of duty and a joyful duty to come and say, no, you're going to like this. Come in this way or come in that way, because it's for you as well. It's not just this exclusive club. And that's what I really enjoy about my career. And I've got a lot of ideas of how to put on performances in the future with exactly these kind of ideas in mind.
Love it. We'll all be there. Well, look, I want to talk a little bit more now about something that you've all raised in different ways, and that is around the value of the arts and the degree to which, outside of this room, people really feel that the arts have value. I mean, look, it's been a challenging year for the arts so far. The Arts Council's already been mentioned by you, Tess. I mean, we at the BBC have had challenges around classical music, well documented. And I sit on the board of Trinity Laven Conservatoire of Music and Dance. I was in a board meeting recently when we were looking at A-level numbers from 2010 to 2023, and music, drama and dance had all fallen by over 40% in that time. And then there was also an article many of you may have seen in the Times last week, the headline of which was, "We should cheer the decline of humanities degrees." And the author argued that if students are going to emerge from university with tens of thousands of pounds of debt, it's good for them to prioritise a course that, above all else, leads to a high-paid job. Now, of course, arts and humanities, they can lead to a high-paid job for some, but I'm interested to know, for all of you, your thoughts on this. Now, how can we communicate the value of the arts, also to parents of prospective students for somewhere like this, at a time where it seems like many are questioning their importance, their relevance? I mean, what can someone like this practically do to communicate that value? Damian, do you want to kick us off on that rather thorny question?
Okay. Well, I've mentioned some things already, I guess, about STEAM as the basis for a second industrial revolution, quoted from Sir Peter Bazalgette. But I'm going to quote a colleague of mine, Tom Hyam, who runs an arts organisation called Mediala that's local to our area. And I'm going to misquote him horribly, so forgive me on that, Tom, if you're listening. So, and it's about value for all, I think, and it's ensuring that value is invested in our future, creatives, our future audiences. And there's an example he was telling me about was in France. Every teenager between, I think it's 14 and 18, gets effectively €230 a year for their arts and cultural support in whatever format that might be. And then if you look at some of the data that's available in terms of how arts spend is distributed across the country, then, and again, I tried to check the data on the train on the way up and I couldn't get access to it, but anyway, so it's something of a region of around 20 plus pounds in London and the South East. In York, we don't do too badly, and it's in the region of around, I think, maybe £14. In Selby, which is just 20 miles down the road, it's £1.17. And so you kind of think, where is the focus in enabling and educating our country in the value of the arts when there's that disparity of investment going across the country? And other countries clearly don't have that. I'm sure they have their own issues to face and their own priorities, but clearly there's a huge difference between £1.17 in our local area and €230 for every child between 14 and 18.
Yeah, it's pretty stark, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Ali, what are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know what the solution is, apart from quite major sea change at the top. But I also think come back to me.
I will. Or you can all do a pass card with any questions. These are big thorny issues. Tess, anything you want to chuck into the mix here?
Well, I always think it's funny because I think it's like some people don't connect the fact that everybody watches telly, don't they? And everybody watches films, and everybody plays video games, and everybody listens to live music. And I think it's something where it's like, people actually do that. People actually make that. There are loads of people. And you know when you do like backstage tours or you get to see like the lighting people or the crew. Like I went to Eurovision at Liverpool, not the final sadly, but one of the semi-final previews. And the crew were like, people were loving them. They came on, they were, you know, chatting with the audience. These are the people actually that make this thing happen. And it's like somehow we don't connect that we need loads of people to do that. And how do we do that? I don't know. Maybe it's that we just need to be a bit more aware culturally of all of those different sorts of people, you know, that exist. And it's not only the people that you see on television; it's the credit list at the end, that, you know, who are making it. I think it's a fallacy to say that it's only for some people. Do you know what I mean? It's only nice for some people because we all consume that stuff.
Yeah, we all. It's not just nice to have. We need it, and it makes, as I said, life worth living. But you know, there's a really flawed statement that was said because it's assuming that everybody will drop all the creative subjects, study something that's, you know, I don't know if there was a suggestion of what, and then everyone will get a high-paid job. I mean, that's not going to happen. No. You know, most people will not get a high-paid job in the field that they studied in if they drop everything else. And also, they won't have... the brain doesn't work like that. The more pathways you've opened up to more things, the more likely you are to be able to get a good job in the end anyway. And music and the arts is proven to do that for you. So it's sort of a very short-termist attitude to say, everybody study science and then medicine, because then you'll all become highly paid doctors. It's like, okay, maybe even if that was possible, then what? What do those people do with that? Okay, they've got enough money to live on, but then what? Is that
what
is that
do they
the
go
point?
and see in the evening when they've done a long shift and they want to go and see some art, go to the theatre, go and see some music? I want to press into this further and pick up on the economic value of the arts, because it's something that one of you raised earlier. And again, looking at the stated aims of this school, the school will, and I quote, celebrate the social, cultural and economic value on society of areas such as creative performance, practice, research and innovation. So the social, cultural and economic value. One of you mentioned preaching to the choir today, and I'm sure we have people in the room who are all, I would guess, incredibly sympathetic to the aims of this school. But I wonder whether, are we now in an age where we need to emphasise the economic value above all else in order for key opinion formers and people outside this room to take note? Or actually, can we still be bold enough to say that the cultural, the societal benefits, the art for art's sake, actually that's good enough? And the moment we stop saying that is the moment we might as well all give up and go home. You're shaking your head, Tess.
Well, I looked at some stats. So I work with Stephanie Sir, who's the head of UK Theatre, which if you don't know what it is, it's basically like an industry body that represents theatre organisations. And she sent me some stats about the economic impact of the theatre industry. Now, this is quite interesting because there's a kind of, perhaps little known in public terms, something that came up in the budget, the last budget that Jeremy Hunt did, and that's theatre tax relief. Now, theatre tax relief is a really cool thing for theatres because it basically says that when you produce a production, quite a decent percentage of the pre-production cost, that is the cost that you spend to get the thing open, you get back from the Treasury, effectively, from the taxman. And I looked up a stat, and I think it was that this higher rate of theatre tax relief, so it's actually at 45% of 80% of eligible costs. It's a bit technical, but it's a lot more than it used to be. It used to be 20% of 80% of costs, so that's more than double. And the cost to the Treasury of that is something like £280 million. And the income to the Treasury from VAT, from theatre, is like 910 million, right? So to invest a bit in theatre gives back a huge amount, and actually I think that perhaps Jeremy Hunt gets that, because theatre tax relief is kind of like a backroom thing that people don't really talk about. But for theatres, it's completely transformational, because it suddenly makes the bottom line of a production that didn't make any cash stack up. And the UK theatre, for example, are campaigning that this rate of tax relief stays, because if it goes back down, theatres are going to be pretty sad about that. And also it's the thing about the spend in the local economy. So when we go to the theatre, and again we have, like people have said, a brilliant country where we can actually travel to the theatre because the country's small enough and connected enough that we can go. And for every £1, I think it is, not just blind with stats, but for every, I thought it was quite cool, for every £1 that is spent on a theatre ticket in this country, about £1.40 additionally is spent in the local economy. So it proliferates the impact, people are spending on transport, on hotels, on food, on other entertainment. And it just makes sense. It just makes sense economically. We all know, sitting here, that we love the arts, and it's good enough by itself. But it also just makes sense for the economy.
So, Damian, how much should a school like this be helping its students to articulate that point? To leave here and be proud to talk about the economic value of the arts, as they are proud to talk about the societal impact, the cultural impact of what they do. Are we, I say we, in a place such as this still too timid, or actually do you think we do a pretty good job of doing that?
No, I think it's a very good point. I think we need to be bolder about it, and we need to be empowering our graduates to go out and say that there's nothing wrong with saying that art have a profound and significant economic value to our lives and our country. But it is the only industry that is massively world-leading and successful that gives you social and cultural value at the same time. Yeah. And so you're getting wins across the board in terms of what we're doing in this world. And I think the new programs that are coming through the school at the moment that are focusing more on the business of the creative industries are starting to, again, train the next generation in terms of, well, how do we, prepare our industries for the future challenges and the future opportunities to come. And I can give you an example. It was the tax credits one that made me think of. I was in this morning. I was in a meeting with some of my other clusters colleagues from around the UK, and colleagues at Cardiff were talking about how, as part of the innovation support that they offered their creative industries in their region, they told them about things like tax credits and what R&D is, because R&D you get, again, tax credits for. And the technology industry understand that brilliantly, but the arts industry doesn't. And I'll quote another colleague of mine, Sarah Ellison from the Royal Shakespeare Company, who says theatres are doing R&D every day. And so if we can convince and let, again, small creative businesses understand that when they try something out and they learn from it, that's R&D, and therefore they can associate that time and get tax credits for it, and it starts to grow their business, and it starts to bring them more opportunities. And I think the other thing that's really important around that is R&D in the creative sector is an opportunity, or investment in R&D in the creative sector is an opportunity to try something out and not have to worry about failing. And that's how you learn, and that's how you grow. And that's such a precarious thing in the arts. You can't really take time to fail. You've always got to be on to the next successful production.
Thank you, Damian. Alison, I'll come to you in just a second, but to say I will come to you for your questions in a moment. I've got plenty more I could ask, but we don't want to run out of time for yours. So do be thinking, and if anyone has a question ready, there will be people with microphones ready to come to you. Alison, tell us your
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. And just from my knowledge of the film industry, it seems that there is no available studio space anywhere in the UK because everyone in the world is coming here because of the intelligent tax break that was brought in, and the country is making tens and tens, if not hundreds of millions from the creative, from film. And they're having to build new film studios because there's not enough space, and it's like this is a big economic provision in the country, addition to the country. It's the same in music. I was at a conference a couple of years ago in Cannes, which is a big music conference, and someone from Coca-Cola spoke. It was not classical was not really part of it, a little niche side part. But someone from Coca-Cola spoke and said that music is bigger than all sport combined. There's more people who are passionate about music than there are about sport, which was, I thought, staggering. But it means that doesn't come from nowhere. There's an industry behind that, and he was speaking in a global sense. But the UK being at the forefront of that, that's not to be, that's not a small thing. And I think nobody, I mean, apart from the quote that you read, it's unusual to find people saying that it's not valuable in some way. But the problem is in the detail of how to execute the value of what it is that we do, how to monetize the value, and how to make sure people get paid properly for the jobs, the highly skilled jobs that they do. And that's the real challenge. The sort of general, yes, we love the arts, we care about the arts, is there for most people, but it's just how do you dig into the details of how to make it economically possible for an individual to have that career.
Yeah. It's also, isn't it, about not doing an either or. It's not that we only talk about the societal impact or we only talk about the economic impact. We can talk about it all in one breath because it's all important in different ways at different times and for different reasons, and being willing and able and prepared to do that. As I say, I have plenty more questions I can ask, but I'm sure there are questions around the room. So please do raise a hand if there is anything you would like to ask our panel. A very quiet bunch. We will happily keep going here for a bit, but give you just a moment. Oh, yes, we have a question. The person here down at the front.
Thank you. That was really fabulous. I was just going to say, it's a bit of a comment, and I just wanted your opinions on things, but when I was at school, it was either science or arts. You did A-levels, and never the twins shall really meet, and how we can change that.
Anyone want to pick up on that one? Has it changed now, I suppose? Do you think that we are in a better place, or is there still it's either the arts or the sciences?
I think there's... Oh,
go on, yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people do feel that they are one way or the other, and you sort of instinctively know which way you're attracted. But if the provision is there, like this school, there will be some people who that just absolutely, the meeting of the sciences and the arts, the technology and the arts, is just such a sweet spot. And when you've got the provision, then anything can happen. It's like the fireworks can really happen, whereas that didn't really happen when we were at school. It was like you just had to sort of nail your colours to the mast quite early on. And I think that's one of the great things that's changed in recent years. It's my experience of that.
I think that the skills that you need to make theatre are so broad. Like, being a producer, I'm probably biased, but I think when you look at lots of people who are producers who organise things, they have to be really good at, I'm not saying that I am, but quite good at maths, quite good at seeing the broad picture of how things fit together, quite strategic in the way that they think, which are all kind of scientific skills in a way, quite kind of detail-oriented and having a broad memory for lots of different things and where everything's at. That isn't probably the kind of airy-fairy idea that we have of the artiste, which is a bit silly, really, that idea, because all artists have to be extremely determined and extremely, driven, which is a skill that you come across, I think, in lots of different areas.
Thank you for your question. Any more? Yes, the woman here and the gentleman as well in this row, just near the front.
I come from an industry background, run a business in technology, and generative AI is obviously the huge topic of the moment. And we're all figuring it out on an industry side how to use it. And I guess how could a school like this approach teaching students how to leverage it? Because that seems like a really cool opportunity.
You're nodding, Damian. I'm going to come to you first.
Maybe I'll pick that up. Yeah, so I think the school already are, and they're looking at, and have been, there's been research driving this for quite some time in terms of how AI is having an influence in various aspects of the creative industries and the creative sector. And it's not new. It's been there for such a long time. And again, I go back to my early education and sort of algorithmic composition. It's just rules that are driving creative decisions. And now we've got sort of a neural net or lots of data doing it, or we've got the power to do it in a lot quicker time than we did maybe 20, 30 years ago, whenever it was that I did it. So I think fundamentally the school is working in that area and preparing the next generation of creatives with the tools that they're going to need and the language that they need to deal with that. But also they're thinking about the ethics around this as well, and the challenges of it, and the biases that are present in the data that's being used to generate AI models and so on. So I think, again, we need to not just assume it's going to solve everything for us. We need to be very much aware of the challenges and of the human aspect of this as well. And again, it's an absolutely, need for technology and technological advancement, but the arts and humanities at the heart of that, to understand where the human is in all of what we're designing and shaping, so that we can have an influence over and make sure it's going to be of benefit to us rather than not of benefit to us.
Anything either of you would like to add?
I don't think we're really thinking about it yet, and I think maybe that's not right, but I think perhaps the new generation of people coming through into the industry will have been thinking about it, and that will help. I think sometimes there's quite a lot of firefighting going on. I don't know we're thinking about it yet. So
Yeah.
The gentleman here.
Hi. I come from predominantly a business background and a long time in tech, and we've been discussing the sort of disparity of money that's flowing through the arts, but there are some areas where the arts have excelled, music and film and Hollywood, etc. So, with the school, do we need to teach people how to exploit the talents they have in a business sense? Because if you're running a business and you have a great idea, you have to take that to market. You have to have all the other skills to actually realise it. And so maybe this is something that the arts need to perhaps do better as well.
I think this is a really interesting point. I've recently been mentoring a student at the Royal Academy of Music who's a great composer, but his understanding of the outside world, simple things like how do I do my tax return and those sorts of things, which is an oft repeated one for freelancers, for artists, but how much are we equipping, or should we be equipping students for that? Or by doing that, do we actually start detracting from what they're here to do, which is to practice their art form in a really brilliant way? And, because you get some people who think, no, actually that'll come, that'll be fine. Let's give them those 3 years or their 1 year, whatever, to really focus on the purity of what they're studying. And where do you sit on that spectrum?
I think, it's a golden age to be able to be in higher education studying something with all of your concentration, but at that time also you're like a sponge. So it's a good time for you to understand how to do your tax return, because me and all my colleagues, we came out of college and we didn't really know how to do it. And of course, then you get in a terrible muddle. And the other thing they should teach probably at university or maybe school is plumbing. So I think accountancy, plumbing, and maybe a bit of car mechanics, and then, but only a little bit. And the rest of it should be all focused on that one, that
great image of you, trying to sort the stop cut while the bailiffs are there because you haven't sorted your tax return, you haven't sorted, when you were 22.
Yes, it's a good point. But I definitely think, I know a couple of musicians close to me who are incredible, but I do definitely worry, who are gifted beyond belief, but I very much worry about whether they'll make it as a professional musician, because you need so many other skills, business skills, transferable skills of communication, and it's just, if you don't have those things alongside your raw talent, you're going to struggle. And
I bet you see that, Tess, as well. Very, very clear similarities in the theatre world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good question, because I think that, like I said, how I wanted to be a certain role and then I ended up being a different one. It's kind of like, so there's a few points what you said. So there is a disparity. So we're all talking about how theatre and the arts make so much money, and how is it that loads of people are really struggling to live as a freelancer? That is a disparity, and I don't really know what the answer is, because the problem is that there are too many musicians, there are too many actors, there are too many people for these opportunities that exist. It's not to say, though, that places are trying to be unfair in how they pay people or whatever. It's kind of how the whole system exists, and I don't always know the answer to how you can move forward with kind of rates of pay and also keep making the books stack up. So I think being realistic in an educational setting is quite important. If you do want to have a secure job where every day you are working, you could be a producer like me who works in venues. Being an independent producer is really difficult. There is absolutely big bucks to be made, but not everybody can, as we know. So it's kind of, I think, being realistic about that and thinking about where do your skills fit, and actually if you want a certain type of lifestyle, you could try looking at something else where you absolutely be contributing an amazing thing, but it might not be the first thing you thought of.
Thank you, Tess. I've got a couple more questions I want to ask. We do have a little time, though, still, and I would really love the student perspective on this. I know there are quite a few students here. You may be sitting there thinking, well, this is all well and good. You're talking about this to some extent in the abstract because you're not in the place I am right now. So if anybody wants to provoke, to ask a question about, okay, you're right in the thick of it now, you're here as part of this school, then I would particularly love to hear from you. We've probably got time for one more question, so I'll let that percolate while I just ask a couple more questions to all of you. You're all creative people. I want to know about your most exciting or your proudest creative moment to date. Let's sort of lift our gaze from some of the big knotty questions, important as they are, and share, insofar as you can ever pick one, your proudest creative moment. Alison.
I think mine would be a project that I put together a few years ago now, which stemmed from an idea about Baroque music, but I knew I was sort of bursting. I couldn't keep it contained in the concert hall. I needed a theatre. I needed it to become dramatic. I needed, so it grew into something which was called Gabriel, and it was at Shakespeare's Globe, and we ended up having the full company of actors, and it was an idea I had about Purcell and Handel in London, and the story was told through the Baroque trumpet, and as I was trying to pitch for the money for this thing, all I could say was, it's not an opera, and it's not a concert, it's not a play either, and it's not really a this, and it's not that, but there's singing and dancing, but it's not dance. But I do know one thing about it, it's going to be very expensive. And I remember not being able to sort of define what it was I was doing, but I was kind of bursting at the seams with this sort of creative thing that didn't really make any sense. But it did actually happen, it came into fruition, and it was one of the best creative experiences of my life. And so I'm very proud of that, and I do hope that I can have I've got another one in me before I die.
I love that, because actually you didn't go in and talk about the economic impact and this, actually you just had the most extraordinary creative idea, and that was infectious, and people bought into that.
And it was infectious, which meant that I found the money somehow. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy. I wouldn't want to have to do that again.
That was a great project. Damian?
I'm going to pick a recent one, which is our XR Stories project that's grown out of the university, and there is a bit of economic impact, but there will be some other stuff as well, and we've just been doing the stats on this, and we've, over the last 4.5 years, delivered 180 projects across Yorkshire and Humber. We've increased revenue for those companies we work with to the tune of £7 million. We've created and maintained 500 jobs. All brilliant economic statistics, and demonstrated the value of what we've done. We've built a brilliant team, some of them here tonight, that have helped to deliver that and put the University of York at the forefront of this in our region, which is amazing and brilliant. But at the same time, we've created some beautiful and meaningful work. We've enabled some companies to do things, to fail and not have to worry about it, but also to create some amazing projects on the back of it, some amazing experiences. I saw Esther wandering around earlier from Pilot Theatre. She's here somewhere, and Monolith is one of the most amazing things, and it's doing the touring all around the festivals of Europe as an immersive VR experience, and it's the most beautiful thing. And it's a York company, a York theatre company that have done that, and there are many other examples as well. I highlight that because it is beautiful, Esther, and because I saw you here earlier as well. So the XR Stories project has been transformative for the university, for our region, and we've done brilliant work on the back of it and told some great stories. Great,
this is really uplifting. I love it. Tess, what are you going to add into the mix here?
Well, I think my one's probably quite cheesy, because it's where I did West Side Story at Curve, and I line produced that, so I kind of looked after all of the different elements, and that was absolute chaos. I think one of the things we don't always say is that artistic projects often are chaotic, and there's loads of things that go wrong. So there was one day where, the Jets and the Sharks, obviously. So 3 of the 4 Jet boys were all really, really ill. And we genuinely couldn't do the show without the Jets. You can't really do it, with just the Sharks, right? And over the weekend, we actually were only meant to get 3, but someone rang someone else. So we actually ended up with 4 swings that arrived on Monday, and we rehearsed them into the show, and we were running again. It's possible that those boys had COVID, because it was just before that, but we didn't know that. But they all had something very, very grim, and these are the fittest lads ever, and they were completely felled by this thing. And we got all these people, so it was absolute, chaos, stress, totally. But it was so well received. It was I think like one of the first with the Manchester Royal Exchange one of the first new productions of West Side Story in this country, because it used to always be that you had to do the revival of the original Jerome Robbins choreography, and that was really exciting, because when you're a little child you see those things, and then to actually be managing that and knowing all of the ins and outs and delivering it is like really, really cool. So you kind of just have to sit there for a minute and be like, yeah, that was really stressful, but also it was worth it. Oh, and like Tony also like almost broke his ankle on the like second to last day because
going on in
yeah,
Leicester.
it's mad, because like Cameron McIntosh was in the audience and he really wanted to impress him, and he jumped off the top of this thing that he was supposed to run down, and basically you could see, and we were also filming the archive recording that day, and you can see him turn green because he's actually basically really badly sprained his ankle. And you know, things like that, just that, this is part of it. It's part of the chaos of the whole thing, but enjoyable. He was okay. Yeah, he's fine.
Thank you, Tess. Do we have a student perspective at all? Anyone want to ask a question before my brief final question? Oh yes, there's a hand over here. Thank you very much. I thought if we just waited long enough, the Brits can't stand the tension. Somebody will put their hand up, and somebody has.
I just want to say, first of all, it was a really interesting talk, so thank you. But from a film and television student perspective, I want to say, do you think that we should, since the creative world is very like specific, do you think we should focus on like a niche and keep working on that until we're successful? Or do you think it's worth looking into music and using those things? Because when you think about it, music and film and television, even interactive media, they all actually work together. So do you think it's worth investing our time in this as well, rather than just focusing on what we're doing now?
Thank you very much. One of you, if you may, who's gonna take that one? Damian, you seem to be reacting to the question.
Yeah, that's such a challenging statement, isn't it? And I think, and I'm sure we'd all agree, you've got to do what you love, really, and you shouldn't try and think about, we've talked about the economics of things, but don't push yourself down a direction that's not going to make you happy. And if it's film and TV that you want to do film and TV. Don't worry about the next big thing. Yeah. Be good at that. Look for the opportunities, though, but do what you love. Yeah. We forget about that in education all the time.
Yeah. I think everyone would agree with that.
Follow your gut.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. My final question to all of you, bringing it right back to this school. We have in the audience today members of staff of this new school. We have students as well. What would your one word of advice to them be as they now embrace this and they're sitting there teaching or learning? It could be the same thing for all, or you might want to split it, but just briefly, if each of you could give a word of advice to the staff and the students of the School of Arts and Creative Technologies. Alison.
I think mine would be, just following on from this topic you just raised, is just follow your heart and listen to your gut and keep going. If you're a music lover or music student, or any of us, keep going to live performances, keep going to the things that inspired you, and remind yourself why you went into the profession and the industry, or that you want to go into the professional industry in the first place, because you can get very bogged down with these things about economics and politics and the insecurity of a career, but you have to keep reminding yourself what you're doing there, because that will absolutely guide you through any of those challenges. I really believe that.
Thank you, Alison. Damian.
I think that's absolutely. I had a bunch of words I could pick for this, and that was one of them. But I'm going to move on and not steal Alison's. I'm going to think and say listen. I think that's really important. Listen to your colleagues, listen to your students. Students should listen to your lecturers and your staff. Listen to the people we want to work with, whether we're students or staff. Listen to their challenges and listen to what experiences they bring to our experience, because we can learn from that, and from that opportunities and creative opportunities will come.
So true. And finally, Tess.
I'd say my key one is collaborate. So I think to staff, and I think the industry want to collaborate with you. If you ask them to come and deliver something or to get involved with something, they want to do that. And also for students, I think don't always think about the people that you're with as like your competition, because actually you can create things together and you can all find your niche and all find your role within that. And that's exactly what you'll be doing in your career. is collaborating. The best people that you work with are really, really collaborative and want to work with you. They don't want to work in a vacuum outside of that. They want to work with you.
Well, look, thank you all very much for everything you've shared. I've really enjoyed this conversation. In a moment, I'm going to hand over to Professor Onyeshil, who is the head of this new school, just to close with a few words. But can I ask you to join me in expressing thanks and appreciation for Tess, Ellison, Damian Murphy, and Dr. Alison Balsom.
Thank you very much. Just a few closing words, and I have to say that was such a fascinating set of discussions, talks, points. It was great to be part of this, and I want to thank our panel very much. Sam, Alison, Damian and Tess, it was a privilege to be here tonight listening to you, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you to all of you for being here, and as I look around, I see a great selection of people, from students to current staff to colleagues out there in the creative industries and retired staff members, and it's a great pleasure to have you all here tonight, and it's great that you are here. So I just want to reflect really briefly, because we don't want to keep you too much longer. Now, I'm preaching to the converted here, and that phrase has come up earlier, but we all know the value of the arts and higher education. However, we do live at a time and in a country where the value of the arts and higher education is not clear to everyone. Now, in the school, we do pride ourselves on storytelling, and Damian has talked a lot about this, and I think you have set us a challenge tonight. As a school, we need to tell a story. There's a very important story that we need to get right, and we need to work on constantly. We need to refine it, make it clearer and stronger, and that's the value of the arts and higher education. And we have the means to do this. We can do it through empirical research that shows the value of creativity, through work that is there for the public good, and through the communication means that we have at our disposal. And this is one of the most important tasks that we, as a school, must grapple with. And I think that we will do significant work in many different ways, and I am confident about that. And we look forward to really innovative collaborations. And we are already collaborating with the two other schools at York, so Damian's School of Physics, Engineering and Technology, and also the School for Business and Society. And we want that work to deepen and extend even further. We want to be a supportive partner to all of the disciplines in arts and humanities. And we want to intersect meaningfully with health sciences, computer science, and many other disciplines. I believe that the university understands our great potential, and I thank the VC for being here this evening and for articulating that so clearly, for articulating that collective faith in us as a school. Now, I do have a few thank yous. I'll keep it really brief. I want to thank Ambrose Field, who's sitting there, had vision of the school very early on, managed to persuade others of its value, and that's not an inconsiderable job. I want to thank Duncan Petrie, who's here as well. Duncan was the founding co-head of the school, is now Dean of Arts and Humanities, and a great force for positivity and momentum. Great colleague. So thank you. And I also want to thank Joan Concannon and Sarah Mitchell for helping us to plan this evening, for all their work that has helped to make this happen. Students, I want to thank you for being here, for being part of our school. For those of you who made music tonight, thank you for all of that life and enthusiasm that you bring to this place. Colleagues, I want to talk to you for a moment. You've worked hard, many of you, to bring this evening together. And I want to express my deep appreciation to everyone who's worked on every aspect of the evening. We have lived through eventful times. I'm sure there are many of you who might wish it otherwise, but we have. And change isn't always easy. But if I look at music and TFTI, our two constituent departments, over the past 5 to 8 years, I see units that have been dynamic and responsive in the face of external challenges. I see units that have looked outward and that have created opportunities that have allowed us to thrive. I see people who are reflective, but who can also take action. And after almost a year of music and TFTI working closely together as a school, we know that we have the same priorities: creativity and the creative integration of practice and scholarship. And that creativity is what makes us fit to tackle change and to keep evolving. And that creativity is what gives me great optimism for the future of this school. So, on that note, I'm going to invite you in just one moment to move back out into the atrium. We've got drinks and canapé for you out there. I'd invite you to also look around at the building as you move out into the space, the atrium space. This building will be a home for the School of Arts and Creative Technologies after a program of remodeling that's going to start in September that will give us new seminar rooms, new practice rooms, new studio spaces. So this is going to be a hub for the arts and creative technologies at York. You will find showcases of student works. In here we're going to have a showcase of recorded student films, and you can come back in, you can drift back in and see those. You can also see an interactive media showcase that's in our 360 space. You go out, you go to the left of the security desk, and you'll see it there. And we also have recorded showcase of theatre work, which is in our exhibition space, very close to the interactive media showcase. And there are student ambassadors on hand who can direct you if you want to find those spaces. But for now, thank you to everyone for being here. We hope that you've enjoyed the evening so far, that you'll enjoy what you see, enjoy the drinks and canapé as well. And thank you again to our wonderful panel this evening, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I. But when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by.
A new dawn has broken, has it not? And I know too well what this country has voted for today. They have voted for a government that will fight for a better tomorrow for our sons. They have voted for a government that will work for a brighter future for our daughters. They have voted for a government that will govern in the interest of the people. That I can promise you. Building a better Britain will take time, and it will be trying.
Keep me What was that in there? Now you know how it feels to be a good-for-nothing nobody, like me. Did you say something to them? Is it because I left you in that waiting? You don't understand. No, you don't understand, Charlie.
I can't carry on, Cecily, pretending this is all right. She's a sweet girl, the sweetest. But she's dying, and I can't sit idly by and watch.
Are you really quite so sure that you can fix it all by yourself?
I'm not standing here pretending she's not ill. You have to accept, we have to accept that Margaret's never going to have a normal life. That's enough for now. Go to sleep, darling.
Graphic design, for me at least, is communicating an idea visually. We've got shape, we've got photography, we've got colour, we've got typography, and you kind of amass through experience a set of tricks when you're kerning your text. Imagine pouring liquid between the gaps of each of the characters, and is the same amount of liquid in between the characters. The reason we start with a grid usually is it provides a framework to lay out all the other elements on, to provide a rhythm for pieces. The grid is a starting point, but I don't think it's the ending point. Do not let the grid, do not let the expectations define what you're designing. It's really easy to dress something up with fancy colours, fancy effects, fancy type styles and stuff, but to actually take something simple and make that memorable, that's the big challenge.
Tonight, our two teams will go head-to-head in a bid to master the chamber. But who will come first? This is Got Balls. So, Team Blue, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, what are your names?
My name's Sam, I'm from Leeds.
I'm Chris, I'm from Chester.
What's the highest number in a Sudoku puzzle?
9.
9 is correct. Red team, pull a poll. Going for a top one. Oh, nothing happened there. Luke. Correct. Red team, pull a poll. Going from the back. Oh, and one from the front goes down.
Everything he inherits will be from me. My money. Ah, Oswald, you're back.
What can one do? This endless rain.
Dinner is ready.
We'll be along in a moment.
Oh, will you drink red or white, sir?
Both, Regina.
Bihan. Very good, sir.
I'll go and help her uncork.
After tomorrow, it shall be as if my dead husband had never lived in this house. There'll be no one else here then but my boy and his mother.
Oswald, let me go.
Oh.
What's the matter?
Ghosts.
Regina? Is she?
Yes.